Hey guys, today I'll be covering the last chapter of medicine. This is known as modern medicine, and this is referring to the 20th century. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. Penicillin was an antibiotic. This means it killed bacteria internally. So some factors affecting it was the luck and the chance. So penicillin itself was discovered by accident by a mold which grew. And Alexander Fleming, he was going to completely reject it. How Florian Chain they saw ability in penicillin and decided to take this idea further. And so Florian Chain, their partnership and teamwork was also an important factor. So they appealed to the US government, the UK government. Again, this is an important factor, the government and their partnership and their coordination. So that was an important factor. So they appealed for money. Money was also an important factor here. So they appealed for money and they got the funds to produce enough penicillin. And due to World War One, which was also a important factor, this meant there was more soldiers to be treated, so penicillin could be worked out. The mass production of penicillin, so here industry is a factor, important factor. The mass production led to more insulin being produced, penicillin being produced, and again increasing the production. For example, other communication factors include the newspapers and articles and the meetings. So that's all of penicillin. So what was the Boer War? The Boer War was a war, and this showed so many people were unfit to be in the army. And in the army, you don't need like such high expectations. So the fact that people weren't even fit enough to go in there showed how bad the public health was. So this led to the welfare state and more interest into the public health of people in towns and cities. Well, the problems in World War One, we had artillery fires. This caused 50% of casualties. We also had shrapnel, which were sharp shards, and last but not least, shell shock. Shell shock was a trauma and psychological effect. Some treatments include, for example, blood transfusion. Before blood transfusions, you had to put blood directly, and this was very inconvenient because you could need it at any time. So the advantages, this allowed so blood used to clot up, so that's why it couldn't be used. But now anticoagulants were created. This prevented blood from clotting, and this meant that it could be stored and preserved correctly and used later. Another one was X-rays. X-rays allowed less use of invasive surgery. So then this means that bones could be checked. This became the basis of MT and CAT scans in the future. And so less invasive surgery as well to see the shrapnel. Other treatments include shell shock treatment, for example, the talking cure. This became the basis of, for example, psychological treatments and post-traumatic disorder treatment. Splint was to hold the bone in place. Skin grafting became the basis of plastic surgery, and basically they were using different parts of your skin to repair the ones that had been damaged. And so Seaborn Roundtree and Charles Booth both investigated how poverty and disease were linked. So they saw lots of factors in poverty, for example, people living in overcrowding situations. Disease were common, pests and unsanitary conditions, abuse, alcohol, and that women, Maud Pember Reeve said, that women were obviously starving themselves to feed their children and their husbands. And they did have the families were split into two categories: the poor that could afford their resources, but money was going elsewhere, for example alcohol, and then the other poor was the fact that they couldn't live off the wage at all, and they were really, really struggling to survive. The Beveridge report said that anyone was worthy of free medical treatment and better healthcare. So then salams were cleared and replaced with better housing, childcare allowances were offered, and the Labour Party also promised to improve healthcare, so that led to the rise of the Labour Party because they promised to invest in the healthcare, and the Liberals tried to change their laws to fit with the Labour Party too as a result. And there was the two parties, so as you can see, the government came involved as well. The NHS offered free treatment, for example, dental care, eye care, and other forms of care. However, some people abused the NHS system. Antibiotics are also becoming resistant due to the overprescription and overuse, as well as in agriculture and industry. And so the NHS obviously is still with us today and is an important factor in modern medicine. What are some of the reforms made in like the 20th century? So we had in 1906 the School Meals Act. So the School Meals Act provided a meal for school children, so free school meals, and this increased the average weight. However, during the holidays, this average rate decreased because obviously they weren't getting fed. School medical service, so before you had to pay to obviously get to see a doctor, the children would get seen, and then the parents would have to pay for it after. But then in the School Medical Service Act, the free clinics were set up in schools, so they received free treatment. Children's and Young Persons Act separated the young from the elders, for example, whether in prisons or care homes, and inspections were held. Old Age Pensions Act gave the old people work and money, so they were less prone to diseases and illnesses, and the immune system became stronger. National Insurance Act obviously introduced in unemployment benefits and free medical treatment, sickness care and pay. Health Visitors Act provided more help for the mothers, so daycare nurses set up, and more nutritious like milk, and this led to lower infant mortality because they suffered from less malnutrition. So that was all of the modern medicine covered in this video.